Hello and good morning. Thank you so much for joining us for Chart Your Course for 2025, an HRA webinar with Action Coach Caitlin Blundell. You recognize her from previous webinars, and she is back to help guide us through a new year full of opportunities for your business. You can see her right there. Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you so much for having me. Thrilled to be
And
back. Let's dive
fantastic.
right in.
Yeah, let's dive right in. I'm going to be in the background looking for questions. I'll let you know if we got any, but until then, take it away.
Perfect. All right. So I see a few familiar names in the chat. I know some of you already know me. Some of you we have not yet had the pleasure. So let me start by getting to know you a little bit and have you get to know me. First of all, if I could get everyone to just jump into the chat and let me know where you're at right now. Who has goals written down for 2025? Not just in your head, but actually written down on paper. If that's you, maybe just let me know in the chat. I'd also like to know who has a plan already for the year. Who's got an action plan with milestones and actions to accomplish what they need to get done in 2025. Maybe what you're after here today is just some fine tuning. And finally, who doesn't have anything written down at all? We are looking at a blank piece of paper. Who's in that boat? All right, so we've got some folks with goals drafted. We've got some planning sessions coming up in January. I'm lucky to have a plan for today. Okay, all right, I'm sure people can relate to that feeling. And an action plan without defined goals. Okay, interesting. Always good to get a sense of where we are to know where to focus. So please keep those answers coming in. I will keep the chat window open in front of me the whole time we're live today. So please do let me just flip it in there if you've got a question or you need me to slow down or speed up. No matter where you are sitting today when it comes to your planning for 2025, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for setting aside this hour to work on your business. I know that is not always easy to do, especially as we push through towards the end of the year. A bit of background, as Matt said, my name's Caitlin. I'm a certified business coach with Action Coach. You can see a couple of pictures here of my life on the slide. In the top left there, those are my kids. I like to keep this picture front and center. It's from the top of a mountain that they hiked up in British Columbia. And it's a good reminder that, little legs taking little steps can still get a long way and surprisingly quickly. It's also a good reminder of perspective. Sometimes just changing the way you're looking at something changes the picture completely. I'd like to reassure everyone my kids are not falling off the side of a mountain. There's a huge giant cliff or huge giant rock face right underneath them. They are completely safe. And sometimes that's what we get out of a session like this one today is just a new way of looking at the business, a new angle, a reframe, a new perspective, and that can change the picture that we see entirely. The other picture up there is my growth club, a 90-day action planning session I host every single quarter. I do this kind of planning work with business owners, especially locally here in Mississauga and in the GTA. If you are in the local market, we'd love to see you in person for one of these sessions. If you're outside the local market, there may well be an action coach near you who runs this kind of session in person as well. Bit of background on myself. I launched my first business back in 2011. At that time, I had just finished grad school. I had no entrepreneurial experience whatsoever. I had no professional network to speak of, and I had no formal business training. I printed out business cards and started literally going door to door to landscape architecture and urban planning firms in Toronto, offering to come in and do a lunch and learn and show them some neat new tech. Against the odds, I racked up a lot of wins in that business. I had opportunities to work on really interesting projects, work with the federal government on a national initiative, teach university and college classes, a lot of high highs, but they also came with a lot of low lows. That business was a cash flow roller coaster. It was a stress roller coaster. I never knew where the next contract was coming from because I had no plan, I had no marketing strategy. That meant that when my second child was born, the little boy in the picture, this hamster had to stop running and that hamster wheel stopped. Not sure if anyone on the line can relate to that feeling. So at that time, I got my first actual paying job, my first official job, managing a startup incubator, where I got to help tech entrepreneurs bring their innovations to market. And for me, that's when the light bulb went off. And I learned that all of these absolutely brilliant minds had a lot of the same questions and issues and challenges, and even the loneliness that I'd faced as a business owner and as an entrepreneur. So I'd been in my own business before, but I realized what I'd really done was build a job for myself. And in that environment of a startup incubator with entrepreneurs in residence and programs, I realized there was, in fact, a better way to go about building a business. And I realized that most business owners, even the ones who are brilliant at what they do in their own field, don't have everything about running a business figured out. So that's what brought me into Action Coach in 2021. I've done a ton of training and learning to get here today and be able to do what I do. And I do believe that this gives us the best framework in the world for building a successful business. Now I get to coach and train every day on these kind of core business fundamentals like planning, all of the things I wish I'd known for myself a little bit earlier. Here's one thing that I've observed from running planning sessions like this one, is that everybody on the line today will walk away with some notes and some ideas. Some of you will even write down specific action items, and some of you will try to put it all together right away. Many others aren't going to find the time to start writing their plan until January or even February. Here's the thing about learning. Adult learners forget 70% of what they learn within 24 hours if they don't engage with it. 70% within 24 hours. If you ever have employees that you feel like train them in one ear and out the other, that is the statistic to back that up. So planning in January is better than nothing, but I'd love for you to have an opportunity to build momentum sooner, and not waste the kind of fresh start energy that comes in January. So if you want a surefire way to make sure that planning doesn't sit on your pile of good intentions at the end of today, I'm also going to offer to meet with you one-on-one. Many of you have already sent in your little your planning prioritization sheet. We're going to get some more work done today. So if I can sit down with you in a complimentary one-on-one session and give you your roadmap for success, I'll give you more information on that at the end of today. My goal for today is basically to give you information that you can use with me, without me. And then for those of you who want to take that next step, I'm available for that as well. If that sounds like an all right plan, let's talk about how do we change? How do we make change personally in our own lives and in our business? Most people come to a session like this because, hey, there are some changes they would like to make. There are some things they would like to have different. Maybe that's more consistency, right? And maybe that more consistency when it comes to marketing and sales. Maybe it's taking something that's going on right now, but executing it at a higher level. Maybe it's earning more of those 5-star reviews or more referrals from your client base. Maybe it's finding a way to increase prices. Or heck, maybe it's carving out more time next year for family or friends or hobbies or fun. Whatever the change is that you are looking to make, let's be realistic. It's not easy. If it was easy, you would have done it already. So that's why I use this formula for making change, for lasting, sustainable change. On the right, we have our resistance to change. That's the R. We all have some resistance to change, right? Whether it's a new health habit and a New Year's Day or a new method for lead generation in our business. We all have that resistance to change. It's called the comfort zone. So we need to make the things on the left stronger than the resistance. So the things on the left, we've got the D is dissatisfaction. Okay. We need some element of dissatisfaction in order to make a change. It's the thing that kicks us into taking action. We also need a vision for what we want to be different, how things could be better. So the way this works is if you don't have the vision, right? If you're just fully dissatisfied, but you don't have clear goals, you're not going to take action. You'll be perpetually dissatisfied. Or maybe you have a vision, but you're kind of comfortable, right? You don't have that level of you're getting by. You're making payroll. You're paying the bills. Things are okay. So we really want both, right? We want that vision to give you the long-term motivation, and we want to get in touch with the dissatisfaction enough to kick you into action to overcome the resistance. Now, the end of the formula is that F for first steps. And this is the reason why most New Year's resolutions don't stick, okay? Because we make them too big. We try to take the first mile instead of taking the first step. Okay, maybe it's, you wake up on January 1st and think, you know what, I'm gonna go vegetarian, or no, I'm gonna go vegan. I'm gonna go to the gym, not just 3 times a week. I'm gonna go every day, right? You make this huge, enormous commitment, and then we run into a little bit of resistance and we get stuck. So we know the best way to start making change in your business is to get clear on what you're trying to do, and then take the first step, chip away at it. When it comes to planning, this means taking all those things that you want to do in month 1 and maybe spreading some of them out down through the year, right? And knowing in advance that this is going to frustrate you. It's going to feel slow, right? We have an intention that we're going to wake up and have a fresh start in January and do something that's radically different. And it's often that is where things fall apart. That's where it doesn't work. So we go at a marathon pace, not a sprint. We make one minor change per week, and we do it consistently. So over the course of the year, you might make 50 small improvements in the business. And at the end of the year, that business does not look the same. Okay, and that allows us to stretch our comfort zone without being snapped back into it. When it comes to goal setting, I've seen people set these 3 types of goals. The first category are the goals that take us away from something. If you're in debt, maybe you want to get out of debt. If you're in pain, you want to get out of pain. Okay, so the goals that take us away from something. Then there are the toward goals. What are we moving toward? A certain level of cash reserve in the bank, a family vacation with no emergency phone calls from the office. Maybe it's selling the business for a great price and retiring comfortably, right? These are the positive things to navigate towards. The final category are the legacy goals. These are the things that don't necessarily serve us personally, but speak to what we want to leave behind. It could be a healthy business that is passed down to the next generation. It could be reaching a level of charitable giving or philanthropy in your community. It could be your new employee talking about you when they retire 30 years from now and telling stories about the best boss they ever had, right? Any of those positive ripple effects that come from running a successful business. It's really easy to set the away from goals, right? I'm going to get out of debt. I'm going to get out of pain. And they're better than nothing, but they don't keep us motivated or on track the same way that the toward goals do. And once you've reached a certain level, as well as those legacy goals do. And this is backed by science. There was a study done recently where scientists gave research participants some illustrated mazes, like the type you might find on a kids menu in a restaurant. And the goal was to get the cartoon mouse from the start of the maze to the finish line. Okay, there was 2 versions. In one, there was a cartoon owl kind of looming over the maze. And in another, the mouse earned a nice piece of cheese as a reward at the finish line. And even with this kind of really basic level of experimentation and illustration, there were differences between the groups. In the cheese group, the participants completed more mazes more quickly because they were working towards a reward. They worked more efficiently than the ones who were running from a threat, okay, even that imaginary threat of a cartoon owl. If we're moving away from a threat, it hardly matters where we end up. So we need something positive to move toward. That means doing a bit more in goal setting than, well, we want to do a little bit better than last year, right? We want to have something that really motivates us to move towards. So the goals that you set are up to you. They're going to be unique. But we want that vision to be strong enough to pull you forward. The more meaningful they are, the better. Okay? Can you close your eyes and visualize a day in the future when you have accomplished that? How many people are on your team that made it happen? What are their job descriptions? What have you been able to stop doing to make time to achieve that goal? What's that future version like? When it comes to building a business, reaching a vision takes a strong foundation. We couldn't, build a skyscraper using the same foundation that we'd use to build a bungalow. So the bigger the vision for the business, the stronger that core needs to be, the stronger the foundation needs to be. So when we're tackling planning, when we're tackling vision setting, goal setting, we want to look at 4 pillars of business mastery. And we need all of these, right? If one of them is missing or weak, the whole structure becomes a little shaky, a little unstable, and a lot risky. We don't want to build more of something that's already unstable. We just get more of something that doesn't work. The first pillar is money mastery. That means having a plan for profit. We're going to look at 5 profit levers today. In your business plan for the year ahead, I'd love to see you set a goal for each one, as well as an overall profit goal for the year. Okay, we're going to get into that in a moment. The second pillar is time mastery. I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but one of the main reasons plans don't work is that, guess what? We're busy, right? We're already busy doing the work in the business. It takes real effort to carve out the time to work on the stuff that will grow the business. So we're going to talk about some time mastery techniques. Delivery mastery is all about consistency. Okay, are your clients and customers getting great results? If you're not yet delivering on the solution that you promise, then there's some work to do here. Okay, this is fundamental. And finally, destination mastery is about setting those big goals and then working backwards from them to identify what are the milestones along the way. And then we want to use that to create a week-by-week action plan to reach them. I work with my clients in 90-day cycles, like I said, at my growth club, because it breaks that annual plan down into like bite-sized chunks, into manageable sections. So what this means is that for most small to medium businesses, effective business planning is not what the big corporations might call a strategic plan. And it's also not what the bank would ask for as a 3 to 5 year plan. Okay, the world changes quickly. The advantage that a smaller business or a medium business has is that you can be nimble and agile and adjust quickly. Okay, we drive a sports car differently than we would drive a transport truck. You're in a great place to drive your business like the sports car, navigating quickly around the obstacles or the potholes or the challenges that come up over the year ahead. So your action plan should tell you exactly who is going to do what by when, right, with a deadline, to reach a specific outcome. And the outcome is important. So I'd suggest setting targets for the year, thinking in advance about the timing of any major moves, like if you need to make a key hire or you need to launch a new website. So we think in broad strokes about 2025, but we hold that plan in an open palm, right? We can't grip it too tight. And then each quarter, we actually can get in and identify 3 or 4 key outcomes that we're working towards with focus and with discipline and with energy that quarter. So in your books or in your notes, in whatever document you've got open, this is a good moment to write down some bullet points. If I asked you a year from now what you are most proud of achieving, what have you accomplished in 2025 that has made you most proud? What would you want to be able to tell me? Jot down a couple of quick thoughts, a couple of quick bullet points, how you'd like to answer that question. What you will notice on this slide is that 50% of the business foundation is about how we're allocating resources, right? Resources like your time and your money. So I want to spend the rest of our time today dedicated to those 2 things. How are we allocating our time and our money? And let's start with time. This is often the bottleneck, right? I don't know if anybody here can maybe sometimes feel like they're too busy to work on their business. They know what they need to be doing. They know what the next move is, but they haven't been able to carve out the time, or at least carve out the time on a regular basis consistently to be able to work on it. It's a real challenge, right? Especially if you are wearing a lot of hats or if your team is not as independent as you maybe would like them to be. So if you've got a lot on your plate, this is often the first place we start to just free up some time for these bigger picture questions. Not all strategies work for all people. So let's go through a bunch of things that have worked for a bunch of people. And maybe there's something new here that you haven't heard before, or maybe there's something that you tried and it worked, but you let it slip. Maybe it's a good idea to recommit to something that you have experienced and know that works. The main takeaway about time mastery is that without ruthless self-discipline, none of the tactics work. Right? I don't have a magic bullet here. The only thing that truly works to reduce busyness is that commitment to prioritize the most important things, to let some things go, to not chase every good idea, to maybe take off the superhero cape that you're wearing to save your team from little mistakes and stumbles. If I'm honest, a lot of my coaching sessions with clients are spent just reinforcing the willpower to do that, right? To have that discipline. Being busy is easy, right? That makes it the easy way. That makes it the lazy way out. It's easier to say yes to things than it is to say no. It's easy to put something in your calendar a month from now and then regret it when it rolls around. Okay, so ruthless self-discipline, and then that will unlock some of these tactics. The first thing is the time audit, the default calendar. If you were concerned about spending, you'd track your expenses. If you were concerned, I don't know, with your weight, you track your diet, right? And if you're concerned about where your time is going, doing a time study for a week will give you insight that will help you make some tweaks or adjustments. Maybe there's something that takes longer than you'd planned, or something that you were putting off because you thought it would take a long time, but actually when you sat down, it took 10 minutes, right? I've done that. I'm not sure if you have. So doing a time audit or a time study gives you some raw data that allows you to make more intentional decisions about what an ideal week in your life might look like or might feel like, and you can map it out, right? That's that default calendar approach. Lots of my clients do marketing Mondays, where they set aside a couple of hours to work on the high priority marketing tasks, or they do finance Fridays to set aside time to look at that side of the business. If you remember your high school experience, I'm not sure how fresh that is in your mind, but if you think back to your high school agenda, it kept you organized because you knew exactly what you'd be working on. You knew you had your math block and your language block and all of the rest. Your agenda didn't give you a specific lesson plan for what you do in that time, but it made sure that you knew you were going to fit all the subjects in. So we want to recreate that approach. Time mastery tactic number 2 is kind of a mashup of 2 important concepts. The idea of a daily highlight is this ritual of asking yourself first thing in the morning, if somebody asked me today what the highlight of my day was, what will I say? And then you take that thing and you make sure it's blocked off in your schedule. Eat the Frog is a book by Brian Tracy, but it's based on a Mark Twain quote. The quote is, if I know in the morning that I have to eat a frog today, the best time to do it is first thing. In other words, do the unpleasant thing first, get it out of the way, and then it's not weighing on you all day long. So these ideas are both about getting clear on what's important for the day, whether it's good or bad, before you start working, and then making sure it's either done first or scheduled. Okay, but we can't let the important stuff slip to deal with the urgent or the small things instead. Number 3, I'm assuming we probably have a to-do list, right? I think most of us have a to-do list that's a mile long. The flip side of the coin is the stop doing list. What are the things that are a waste of time, a distraction, or the things that you just don't enjoy? One coaching client made a list of everything that he was only doing because there was no one else to do it. And he committed to getting it off his plate. So he was only left with the parts of the job that he actually liked. Some items on the list were relatively easy to delegate or outsource, but it took 2 years to get the last item off that list. So imagine if you'd started tackling your stop doing list 2 years ago, right? We can't go back in time, but the next best thing is to start it today. Number 4 comes back to the principle of self-discipline. It means setting some guardrails around your time, saying no more often. Most business leaders I know aren't short of good ideas. And most of us are pretty good at saying no to bad ideas, right? The stuff that obviously isn't going to work. It is a lot harder to say no to good ideas, but we have to, right? We have to in order to leave room for great ideas. Sometimes that means saying no to good clients when they want you to offer something that is outside your range, right? Those are hard decisions, but keep coming back to your vision, your goals. If you have a core values written down or points of culture, don't be afraid to stay focused. Feel free to jump in the chat. Which of these do you think will work for you? Stick a number in the chat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What haven't you tried? What are you going to try next? Number 5 is the idea of layering tasks. I think we can all agree multitasking is a myth, right? The time it takes to refocus from one activity to another just makes it not worth it at all. But that doesn't mean that no two activities are compatible. Okay, there are activities that are done in combination really successfully. Like imagine a dinner party where the guests only focused on either eating or conversation, but never both at the same time. Like that would be a terrible dinner party. So we know we can do 2 things at once. Layering activities is about doing one thing that takes brain power and then pairing it with something that you can do on autopilot. So listen to a podcast while you chop vegetables, walk during a meeting, right? What are the 2 things that we can do together? Number 6, true communication is the response you get. Who's experienced a communication breakdown that led to a bunch of wasted time, right? If you're spinning your wheels because you think you've communicated clearly, but the person you're talking to or emailing goes off and does something that you did not intend, right? It's on you to change to get a different result, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So if you're sending email that never gets read or they only respond to the first paragraph, that's not faster than picking up the phone. We want to change the approach and change the communication. We have tons of communication tools to make this more efficient. And we have tons of research, again, to back this up. We know 7% of communication is communicated by the words that we choose, right? The same words can be interpreted differently by different people. So if we're relying on text messages, on WhatsApp, on email, we are communicating at 7% of the total potential. 35% of our communication is in our verbal tone, right? How that person sounds when they're saying the word, and the rest is body language. So phone is probably better. And if you can't meet in person, try maybe sending a video message, right? Change up the communication style to get a different response. The flip side of this is also true, right? If you or your team is bogged down in endless meetings where nothing happens, then we want to focus on what are the desired outcomes. What do we want out of that meeting? And then let's reverse engineer. Let's work back to figure out how to get better at communication to get that result. We need to track the interruptions. If you are finding yourself victim of the, hey, you got a minute? Right? Hey, boss, got a minute? If no one can move without you stepping in to make every little decision, then we have got a problem. So what are the most common interruptions? And what is the system or the document, the FAQ, the SOP that we need to put in place to control them? Okay. What is the level of self-discipline it takes to stop responding, to say, that's a good question, bring it to the meeting? Right? Because if we get pulled sideways every 5 minutes, we never get anything done. Finally, on this, managing your energy is just as important as managing your time. If you know that every day you've got an energy lull at 2 p.m., then let's just plan around that, right? If you know that your most focused time block is first thing in the morning, set that time aside for something that matters. Don't waste it answering email, right? Don't waste it on busy work. So we want to know what is your own kind of rhythm through the day? Where are your high energy times? What are your low energy times? And plan your day accordingly. Okay, so 8 time mastery strategies. Like I said, none of this is brand new. These are all tried and true. Curious again in the chat, let me know what you think will work for you. What would you like to start trying? And what did we think about how much time in a typical week could we actually clear up if we implemented some of these, right? By the end of Q1, can we carve out 4 hours a week, 5 hours a week to work on the business? What could you do with that time? What could you do at that time? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about profit, right? Let's talk about money mastery. Every business plan is going to have some financial projections. I want to give you some ways of thinking around the money in the business to make sure that we're focusing our energy and effort on the things that are going to give you the results. This is a formula I call the 5 ways. Okay, so what's going on here? If we look at the things that are in red, right, the number of customers, the revenue, and the profit. These are the things that most business owners or most business leaders know about their business. They know how many customers they had this year. They know what their top line revenue was, and they know what's left after all of their expenses. But if we want more of any of those things, right? If we want more customers, more revenue, or more profit, then we really want to direct our attention at the inputs, right? At the leading indicators that are going to give us the result. So if we want more customers, we might want to look at how many leads, how effective is our marketing? How many people have heard of us, have put up their hand and said, hey, yeah, I'm curious, tell me more. What can you do for me? What's the conversion rate? How many of those leads actually make a transaction and become a customer? Looking at your customers on average, how many transactions is a typical customer making in a year? Is there any opportunity to increase that for them to come back more often, to stay in touch with the database more consistently than you are today? On average, what's an average transaction value? Some customers are going to spend a little, some are going to be worth a lot, but can we track those averages and see that grow? Maybe there's an add-on or a tweak or an increased price or something that's going to help boost that average value of a transaction. As we multiply this together, we can see that the number of customers multiplied by the lifetime value of each customer gives us a ballpark idea of what the revenue is. And then, of course, we want to understand our margins, our gross margins, and our net margins to know what is generating profit and focus on that. Okay, so this is a really simple scorecard. This is how we know whether you're winning, not compared to your competitors, but compared to your previous year or your previous quarter, right? If we track these 5 things in blue, quarter by quarter or month by month, then we can see how strategies are working and where there is more opportunity to increase each number. If you are not tracking if there's 1 or more numbers that you are not tracking at this moment, it's worth putting that in your planning. How are we going to track for that? How are we going to capture that data? We can't grow what we don't know. So if we want to grow any of these numbers, then it's really important to track them and know what they are. I'm going to put some numbers in just to show you how this works as an equation. Your numbers probably look very, very different than this. That's okay. We're just looking at how the formula fits together. So this is a hypothetical business. They had 4,000 leads over the course of a year. 25% of those leads made at least 1 purchase, so that business had 1,000 customers. On average, each customer made 2 transactions over the course of the year, and on average, the spend was $500. So we can see how that revenue, how we arrive at $1 million in revenue, right? The profit margins in this business were 15%. So their profit at the bank at the end of the year is $150,000 to reinvest, right? Into growth, into expansion, into new equipment, new vehicles, or whatever else. Once you know what your numbers are and what you want them to be by the end of the year, we can start designing a plan to make it happen for your business. Any sort of incremental improvement is good as long as you can sustain it over time. Okay, we don't want to throw everything into marketing, get 10 times as many leads, and then burn out because we can't possibly respond to all of them. Okay. Often we target a 10% improvement in each of these areas, each of these 5 numbers in blue. That's usually a really feasible goal. The impact doesn't overwhelm the business, and we don't run into a problem where the business feels like it has indigestion. So looking at that number as an example, in this business, they went up from 4,000 to 4,400 leads over the course of the year. How did they do that? Well, maybe they did a little more smart marketing, increased their ad spend, maybe got really clear on the search terms or the keywords that people are really looking for. Maybe they did some SEO work on their website. Maybe they got out, joined some local chamber events. Maybe, like any of those kind of get known, get your name out there, visibility, profile raising activities could count here. So 10% increase in the number of leads. They paired that with a 10% increase in the conversion. So it's 25%. We're adding 2.5% to get to 27.5%. Maybe they did a little sales training, right? Maybe they had some more effective sales scripts. Maybe they made a point of doing better follow-up with the people who had been interested but weren't ready to make a decision. Okay, so they're converting more of the leads that they had. That means their customers jumped to 1,210. They also brought their customers back more often, right? Maybe they were leveraging their database, staying in touch. Maybe they were making proactive calls out to past customers to see what's out there, see what work is available to them out there in the world. Remind them that we exist, right? Remind them of the full range of products or services that we offer, because sometimes they'll buy one, but they don't know about everything else. They also increased the average value of a transaction. This could be as simple as a price increase, right? Responding to inflation, our costs have gone up, their prices are going up. It could also be bundling products or services together. It could also be a smart add-on. It could also be adding a premium tier to the service that not everyone is going to go for, but some people will, right? Enough to drive up that average a little bit. I've talked to many businesses about what this could be for them. I've often had people say, well, we don't have an add-on. That doesn't make sense for our business. I was talking to a law firm and they were saying, you know what, we're not McDonald's. We're a serious law firm. We're not McDonald's. Do you want fries with that? But we talked it through, and then they realized that actually something like 80% of the clients that they worked with hadn't updated their will in the past year. And so they started just offering, for every transaction they did, by the way, if it makes sense for you to update your will at this time, we'd be happy to take care of that as well. Guess what? Average value of a transaction went up. Right? Sometimes it really is very simple. So we can see the revenue is growing, right? And we can see that these factors are multiplying together. So the impact is compounding throughout the formula. The sum at the end is greater than its parts. They also worked on their margins. Maybe they stopped offering so many sales and seasonal specials, had more full price work. Maybe they stopped doing some things that weren't working very well, right? Maybe they focused their sales efforts on their highest margin activities. Okay, so we're increasing the margins by 10% as well. And you can see the cumulative impact of all of this at the end of the year is that their profit jumps 61%. And that's the math that I want you to take away, is a 10% increase in each of these 5 areas gives you a 61% increase in profit. Okay. So in your plan, what I'd like you to do is set a target for profit and then work back from there. We set the profit goal and then we work back and we figure out what 5 ways numbers would you need to achieve in order to reach your profit goal. I'm making this scorecard available to you in an email. I'm going to ask Matt to send it out after the session today. Like I said, I am available as well for these one-on-one sessions where we will sit down and go through your 5 ways numbers and start picking and choosing what are some strategies that might work really well for your business and where you want to focus first. I often see people jump straight into lead generation first, jump straight into increasing the marketing budget when there is low-hanging fruit further down the formula, right? When they could tighten up their conversion rate, when they could leverage their database better, when they are leaving money on the table by not educating clients and customers about everything that they do. That can be a really expensive way to run a business, right? That can be an inefficient way to run a business by focusing on the marketing first and taking your eyes off of everything else. So we want to make sure we're taking the quick wins, the easy wins, eliminating all of those little bits of profit that might be leaking out of the business right now, tighten up everything, and then go back and then focus on the marketing, and we'll get more bang for the buck. All right, so what does your action plan look like? How do we put all of this together? I think it's really important to start with a vision, right? We started up at the top with, where do you actually want your business to be by the end of the year? If you've got a clear picture there, that's great. Go further, right? In 3 to 5 years, where do we want to be? In 10 years, where do we want to be? What is that in Jim Collins's phrase, your big, hairy, audacious goal? What's that big, hairy, audacious goal you're working towards? It gives us a destination. It's like setting your GPS, right? You would never leave your house or leave your office and start driving in a random direction, go a mile or two down the road, and then go, I wonder if I'm going in the right direction. I wonder if I'm going in the most to where I want to go. You would never do it in your car. You don't want to do it in your business, right? We want to set the GPS first and give you a target to navigate towards. From there, it's like a ship leaving harbor. Okay, it's like anything that comes your way, whether that is storms, tides, currents, reefs, islands, like whatever you find in your way between you and your destination, you can navigate around it, right? And you can keep course correcting back to your destination. A lot of long haul flights and long, boat journeys, they're off course 93% of the time. A long international flight is going to be off course more than it is on course, but because they know where they are going, they find a way to get there in the end, right? We keep pulling back to that destination point. That's what we want the vision to do for you. Then we want to break that vision down into specific, measurable, achievable, results-oriented, timely, quarterly targets, right? Those SMART goals. We want to break it down into the bite-sized chunks that are SMART goals in order to be confident by the end of Q1 that you're on track for the rest of the year. What do you need to achieve, right? What do you need to achieve by the end of Q1 to feel confident that you are on track for your plan for the year? Because if you're on track for the year, then you're on track for the future. You're on track for the long term. The quarterly targets become our weekly focus, week by week. What are the specific actions we need to take? What are the tasks we need to accomplish? And that becomes the daily action. And then by disciplined daily action, that is how we achieve the vision. Okay. But it starts at the top. It starts at the top with the vision. The vision determines the goals determine the focus, and the focus determines what are those little daily routines and habits that carry us forward. Love this quote from Vern Harnish. He wrote a book called Scaling Up. He says, goals without routines are wishes, and routines without goals are aimless. The most successful business leaders have a clear vision and the disciplines or routines to make it a reality. One more formula for you today before we sign off, which is this: if you want different results, there might be some tweaks to make here. This is what I call the formula for life success. B times do equals have. What this means is that whatever you have today, whatever you've done so far, whatever you have achieved so far, is the result of two things. It's the result of the actions that you've taken, right? The things you've done, as well as who you are, right? Who your specific vision, your specific leadership style, your expertise, your skill, your education, your knowledge, all of those things that make you who you are, right? So if we combine who you are with what you do, we get the result, which is what you have. So if that is true today, then we can also carry it forward to the end of 2025. Whatever you want to have by the end of 2025 is going to be the result of what you do and who you are. And this is great, because it gives us perspective on where we might need to shift, right? If you are doing at like a 10 out of 10, You are busy. Your days are action packed. You've got no time to fit in any more activity. Well, maybe the change we need to make is on the side of who you are, right? Maybe we need to be more disciplined, more structured, more consistent, more trusting of our team, right? If there's a skill you can learn, if there's a training you can take that will unlock some of the results from the activity that you're already doing. Okay. If on the other hand, you are, like many people I know, being at a really high level, these are the folks who have their positive affirmations, they've got their meditation, they've got their bullet journal, they've got their yoga practice, they've got all of those things, and they are focused on manifesting success. They got to do something, right? If that's you, and you are confident that you are being as focused and as intentional as you can be, but you have not yet taken action, picked up the phone and made that phone call, for example, then we got to focus on the do side, right? We got to have both. So, you know, you can even score yourself here. How are you doing out of 10 on the be and on the do? Where is the first opportunity where you start to have differently? If you don't know yet where you want to have, then we can get clear on that as well. And sometimes getting clear on what you want to have will tell you a little bit about who you need to be and what you need to do. All right, so I hope that you have gotten value for your lunch hour today. I hope you've taken away a couple of tips and ideas that you can put into action right away. If that's you, if you're confident that you can take all of this, you can DIY it. All I want to say is thank you for your attention. Thank you for coming. If you are looking for a way to get your plan on paper and hit the ground running in January, well, everyone else is still brushing off the dust after the holidays. We can get that done in a follow-up session. As I said, this is just a free offer, an hour together to put that 5 ways down on paper and look through that prioritization checklist that Matt sent around earlier. So the QR code is there to book the meeting. You can also just reach out to me via email if that's easier for you.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Always a lot of great insights for business building, and right before the new year too. So good timing as well.
Excellent. We've got a few minutes, so I'm happy to stick around and take questions if there are any.
Sure. Looks like people know how to use the chat box, but in case you're wondering, it's just at the bottom of your screen. We also have a Q&A button as well if you want to put it in there. But yeah, we got 10 minutes left, so feel free to pick her brain while we got her. And you said we'll be sending something after this webinar.
I've got that 5-way scorecard, so
Okay.
you'll have that. I'll ask you to send it around.
You bet. Okay, we'll get that out to everyone who registered and everyone who showed up today as well.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I know some people register and then something comes up. So if they're catching the recording, the offer is certainly open to them as well.
It is. And I got to say, I've been listening to this webinar and, you know, I do freelance work as well. And a lot of the stuff hits home for me. So I was taking notes too.
It's funny how every business is the same and every business is unique.
Yeah.
The 5 ways and the time discipline is so common across every industry and every business. Then in the one-on-one, that's when we get into the unique side, right? What makes your business special?
I think what resonated for me is your point about manage energy over time. I mean, in the morning is when I'm most prepared to tackle that big project, that the hardest article, and then just get that over with, and you kind of free up your mental load. So it's a good insight.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah,
Cool.
thanks for sharing.
I think we're good. I don't see any questions popping up. Oh, yeah, there we go. What do you suggest is a good balance between planned meetings and free time?
Well, I hate to say it depends, but it kind of depends, right? The planned meetings, are they productive? Are we getting stuff done? Are we making decisions? If yes, and if that's the role that you're in, where you need that collaboration and you need that consensus in order to push the business forward, then planned meetings can be a great use of free time, a great use of your time. I would say the framework I go back to most often is the idea that we want to have 20% of our time at a minimum to do work that is not particularly urgent, but is important. Things like making your business plan, right? Things like developing a marketing strategy, things like coaching your team, even things that, you know, there's no real urgency around them. You could do it tomorrow, you could do it next week, you could do it next month. But if you never do it, then you really start to see an impact on the business. So 20% of your time at a minimum dedicated to that work that is important in pushing your goals forward, but not urgent. If we then say you've got 60% of your time dedicated to like working in the business, doing the stuff that is both urgent and important, right? Dealing with the stuff that comes up every day, doing the tasks on your job description. If you've got a job description, if you've got customers to call, questions to answer, one-on-one meetings to have, all of that work that is maybe your job in the business, 60% of your time. And that leaves you a buffer around the edge of 20% of your time. So maybe that's 10% on stuff that is urgent, but not necessarily important to you. So stuff like other people's priorities that pop up. Sometimes we can't ignore them completely. We just want to put some guardrails around it and make sure those things aren't taking over. And 10% of your time kind of free and clear, or in that distraction zone where you're working on things that maybe you're just giving your brain a break, right? From because we're not robots and we can't be fully focused and committed every single second of every single day. So that's the kind of the breakdown that I keep going back to, is 20% on important but not urgent, 60% on urgent and important, and then 10% in the other two buckets of urgent and not important, and not important and not urgent. If you want more on that, you can search for the Eisenhower matrix, and it will tell you a little bit more about those different categories.
Great question. Thank you. All right. There we go.
Oh,
well, Steph says, thank you for the presentation. I'll read this last comment from the previous question. I believe sometimes our organization is a logjam of dragging projects that are aligned with our vision and importance to the business. What would be a good strategy to leave things behind?
That's a great question. Again, I'm not sure I can give you a really comprehensive answer without spending some time with you, Nicholas, and learning a little bit more. So I'm certainly happy to have that one-on-one meeting with you after this. It sounds like it's a prioritization issue, and being clear about what's going to get the result right now versus what can we kind of put in the parking lot and come back to in the future. Sometimes there's one thing that if you just did that, everything else would become either easier or unnecessary, right? If we unlock this one thing, everything else we're going to do is going to get a lot easier, and that can be a great place to start. Or it's kind of figuring out what are those key goals, like what are the most important things we want to achieve this year, and what's aligned with those, and kind of putting the long-term vision and the longer-term priorities not off the stove but on the back burner, right? And so we can have the time and attention for the first things first. But I think that's probably a question we need to dive into in a little bit more detail.
Thank you. Another thanks, great webinar from Eric as well. So good feedback. Okay. Well, unless anything else pops up, again, thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll see you in the new year.
I'm sure we will. Take care. Happy
Thanks so
holidays.
much, guys.
Best of luck
Cheers.
to everyone in the year ahead.